Welcome, everybody, to the A Little Less Fear podcast. I'm your host for the show, Dr. Lino Martinez. Oh, yeah.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Little Less Fear podcast. Today, I am super duper excited to introduce our next guest. Her name is Helen Morris, all the way from New Zealand. She's a certified emotion code and body code based out of Rotorua, New Zealand. She came across this healing modality after tragically losing her 18-year-old daughter and only child in a motor vehicle accident in 2017. I'm so happy to be connecting with Helen today. Welcome to a Little Less Fear podcast, Helen.
Oh, it's wonderful to be speaking with you today, Lino. It's taken us a while to connect and get together, but I'm so excited to be with you and share with your listeners what my journey has been. And I believe everybody has their own journey, and it's no accident that we go through the things we did. And I guess, like for me starting young, I felt a misfit in my family. So right from the outset, I never thought I belonged with my family. And I went through huge amounts of trauma as I was growing up, just feeling completely isolated, different, not a part of, my family. And then late in life, I had this beautiful girl when I was 35 called Hawke. And honestly, she came in with a bang. This girl had so much dynamism, with her. She just, she took life by storm. She was very knowing. And I felt as soon as I saw her that she'd been here before. It was just like a knowing. And she could sit upright at 2 weeks old. And I was going, ooh,
Wow.
That's scary.
Wow.
And yes, seriously. And she was like this child the whole way through. It's like she gravitated to always older people and older children than herself. So when she started primary school, she was hanging out with in New Zealand, we have, year sixes. She was hanging out with all the older kids ready to go on to intermediate when she had just started school. And it was the same wherever she went. She just gravitated towards older people and had all these other people gravitate towards her. So she was certainly just a wake-up call in my life, and a beautiful one at that. And I think she was my teacher. As much as I was her mother,
Yes.
She was my teacher. And I learned how to be a much better person, I think, by being her mum, because she wouldn't tolerate any crap. She was outspoken, loud, sassy. She was just dynamic and beautiful. And so she would call me out and she'd go, Mum, you can't tell me that stuff if you're not doing it yourself. So it was like wake up calls, and it was like that all the way through. And I just learned unconditional love from this beautiful child. She just loved me. She just loved me with all my faults. And believe you me, I've got a few.
Yeah.
But, to have this gorgeous girl who just loved her mama so much, and she was forging her way in life. She knew what she wanted to do. She didn't want to go to university because she wasn't sure she knew what she wanted to study there. So she found herself a job, full-time job, left school. That was a criteria. She had to find the job first before she could leave school. And then she just took life by storm, and she just impacted so many people in such a short time out in the workforce. And then just days before she had her accident, she actually said to me, Mum, she came home really excited. She was always excited. She came home really excited. Mum, I've booked us a a seat, and she was working at a restaurant then, a really lovely restaurant. She goes, okay, I've booked us a seat in the corner away from everybody so we won't be disturbed, and we're going to work out how I can get to Costa Rica because I'm going to do the Outward Bound leadership courses there.
Wow.
And she was a great athlete, a natural leader, and it just made sense that she'd found what it was that she wanted to be doing. Yes, so yeah.
And so it seemed like she was already basically looking forward to her next step. And then after that, what happened after that?
Yeah, so that was only days before she had her accident. And it's funny how life works, because we were supposed to move house the weekend following her accident. But for some strange reason, I just said, oh no, we're going to move this weekend. And we could, and so we shifted the weekend before. So we just shifted into this lovely home where she could have pets. And she was so excited about that. And it was out in the country. And, it was a great time for us. And I remember giving her a call just as I was leaving work. I was running a little bit late, so I left work and I gave her a call and said, do you want to meet me in town? Because she was heading on to work, and we can catch up, have dinner there, and then you can head on to work. And she said, oh, no. I'm just leaving Napier, which is a city about 20-30 minutes away from us. And she said, so I'll come home, pick up my uniform and head off then. And then I realized, I just had this eerie feeling, just, you lose concept of time, but it was within half an hour. And I just had this strange feeling, and I knew something had happened. And as it turned out, I found out about her accident before anybody else told me. I just had this knowing, and I started making phone calls, and I found out on Google that, there was a fatality between a truck and a car on the
Wow,
road
on
that she
Google.
was, we eventually knew her phone was. Yeah. So it was kind of right from the outset, really kind of just all this stuff happening, which really gave me a whole different sense of managing her death. And then she gave me this big checklist of ticking it off. And I was going, no, baby, no. And it was like, she was going, yeah, Mum, I've done everything I needed to do here. I was going, no, I'm not ready for you yet.
But
So then I found
what do you
out.
mean by that, Helen? You mean that you felt you felt her presence telling you this?
Yeah. So really, really strongly, I just had this sensation and this vision without it. It's hard to describe sometimes, but I heard her, and I could see her doing this action of ticking off this checklist. And she'd already transitioned by then. And as it turns out, her accident happened 2 minutes after I'd spoken to her.
Oh my goodness.
And I was going, oh, yeah.
2 minutes?
So at first I thought, yes. So at first I thought, oh my gosh, it was my fault. I didn't realize she was driving at that stage, because she didn't typically pick up her phone if she was driving. And so I thought she was just getting ready to come home. And no, in fact, she was driving. And then I thought, oh my gosh, I've created this accident. And then I actually drove that distance of how far you can drive in 2 minutes. And then I went, no, actually, I'm going to flip this on its head. How lucky was I that I got to say a goodbye to her, a final goodbye. And she was so excited in that phone call. She'd set up her bedroom. She was so excited for me to see it and to meet up with me and have dinner. And, truly, I was grateful for that, even though it just seems like the cruelest thing ever to happen, to lose a child.
I can't even imagine. But by the time you actually felt the gratitude of having to have communicated with her 2 minutes prior to that, I'm assuming some time would have passed before you actually went back and felt that gratitude.
Can you just repeat that for me? It just cut out just a little.
Sure, sure. I was saying that from the time that you found out that she had passed, you said that about 2 minutes had passed, but and that you're grateful that you had those 2 minutes prior to that happening, that you were actually able to talk to her before then. How long before you actually felt that gratitude? I can imagine it took some time, some healing before you actually looked back and was grateful for those 2 minutes before.
Uh, in the scheme of things, I don't actually think it did take that long. I mean, it was the craziest thing because she was 18 and a half years old. So she was in the prime of her life. She was surrounded by beautiful friends. And I was so busy trying to make sure her friends were okay with her death. And I decided right from the outset that we were going to celebrate her life. So when I was organizing the funeral, I decided to wear a white dress with yellow daisies on it. And we had this bright pink casket, and her friends rose all over it and bedazzled it, and we put things in the casket, and then, you know, at the funeral itself, it was so incredible. We had so many people. They were flowing out onto the roadside. It was so many people. And we had these beautiful balloons that we tied messages to of her friends who couldn't make it because they'd just started university and were in a different island. And it was just this incredible goodbye. So really very early into it, I sort of flipped it on its head, and I just thought, you were such an incredible presence in my life. I'm going to honor you. And I didn't know how that was going to look, but I knew that it was almost like she was guiding me, that whenever I was going to a dark place, she would say, I'd hear her, you know, go open the book. And the book is Soul Secrets, which is, you know, I was a little bit spiritual beforehand. So I had this beautiful book called Soul Secrets by a New Zealand clairvoyant and psychic medium. And he'd written this book that you just open to various pages, and it would give you an insight from our loved ones across the veil about how life was for them and what they wanted us to know and us to feel who were left behind here. And so I would use this book and I'd open it up, and it would suddenly take me to a different place. And then very early on, you know, I just kept practicing that. But then she introduced me to energy healing, and she did that by a podcast. I wasn't into podcasts, but I'd randomly downloaded podcasts to listen to on a trip I was taking, which was about 4 hours long. And the second one I listened to was, you know, Dr. Bradley Nelson talking about the emotion code and how people, when they experience trauma in their life and, you know, major events, that if you don't process those emotions, you can trap them within your body. And that energy can stay within your body and create all sorts of ailments. And I'd had some really major chronic illnesses. And I was thinking, oh, this is making so much sense to me. And so when I got to this beautiful beach where I was just going to take some time out for a couple of weeks, I called it my healing place. It was this beach, beautiful beach called Hawke. It's one of the most beautiful beaches in New Zealand, very popular. And I decided to download the free app that was available on this emotion code. And I decided to teach myself how to muscle test, because that's what you needed to do to get the answers and be guided by this emotion code system that Dr. Bradley Nelson had developed. So I spent a few days doing that. And then I started.
Could you repeat that, Helen? You said that it's called what? It's called muscle something. Did you say something muscle?
Muscle testing.
Muscle testing.
Muscle testing. Okay. Yes. so that I could be guided by the emotion code system in the app that had been developed. So basically it uses yes, no to take you to various parts of the body, various emotions, various belief systems that you have. It's quite an incredible, profound program. Actually, the second part, the body systems, are in the body code, which I progressed up to. But even just doing the emotion code, which had a series of 60 emotions set out in 6 rows, 2 columns with about 5 emotions in each sector. And you would just muscle test, is it even or odd? Even row or odd row? And then you'd sort of narrow it down. Is it row 1, row 3, row 5? Okay, is it in column A or column B? So it was in column B. And then you could just go through those 5 emotions and bang, you'd lock in on this emotion. And then you would just, ask your body using your governing meridian, which runs from the base of your, the top of your lip up through down, right down to the base of your spine. You just use your governing meridian to release this energy. And of course, I thought, oh, this is too easy. This is too easy to be true. But anyway, I loved what it sounded like. So that is what I started doing. Oh my gosh. I was just releasing emotions, identifying emotions that were so on point. Like I had loads of jealousy in my life growing up and loads of anger. And I was a typical Virgo in the fact that I was such a perfectionist, used to drive people crazy. And so I started releasing all these emotions. I kid you not, for the first time in my life ever, I reached a place where I just felt calm and I felt at peace and I felt a really beautiful, calm strength about me. And I knew from that point forward, my life was going to be fine, that I was going to be okay. And it was such profound healing from trauma that had influenced and affected so much of my life, my self-esteem, my self-worthiness, my self-belief, everything. And here I was, like, feeling a completely different person. And so
Helen,
I decided,
I'm trying to understand the emotion code release. Like, how do you actually release, like, for example, jealousy, that you mentioned that you had a lot of jealousy in your meridians, correct? How do you actually
okay,
release that?
okay. So I think the whole premise behind it is that when you're actually acknowledging that emotion, you're tapping into the emotional vibration of that emotional. So it's the energy attached with that emotion. And when you tap into it, you can then acknowledge it and allow it through your meridian system, which is that, sort of ancient Chinese system, which, has affects every part of your body. You have you have the main meridian, and then you have the other meridians, but you have the governing meridian. And when you place the intention to release this energy from your body, you can just do that by swiping and you just release the energy. It's like you channel it into this governing meridian and then it's just released from you. And it sounds crazy. And and believe you me, I was skeptical at first. But I think what I noticed very early on in the piece was that the more of these emotions I released, the more I was starting to come into my own and just be able to relax and breathe. And so I wanted to understand more, and I wanted to actually train in this modality. So I actually flew to Utah to do a conference with Dr. Bradley Nelson. And I got to meet him and all these other wonderful people. And it was all about the energy flows in your body, and that every emotion has its own, vibrational energy frequency, as you say. And so by releasing more of these lower level energies, you lift the whole energy in your body.
Yeah.
And the more you lift the energy in your body to a higher level, the more you actually connect spiritually.
Yes.
And so I'd already been having that happen prior, off and on. But now I could tap into it big time. And it was pretty incredible.
It
So then
sounds incredible.
Yes, and then there was the extension to that, which was a body code, which built on all the emotions, and it could allow you to identify belief systems, limiting belief systems, and where they were trapped in your body. So for me, I had spent many years with severe Crohn's, which affects your whole digestive system. And I was in and out of hospital a lot, and I was on loads of medications until one day I went, no more, I'm going holistic. And so I started that journey. But I'd had an awful lot of damage to my system then. So I was trapping a lot of emotion in my, digestive system around those organs. And I kept tapping into that. And I was going, this is freaky. This is wow. And you can literally tap into an energy of a pain and work on that pain and have it reduced within 30 seconds to a minute. You can actually feel it reducing. And so
for the body
so
code,
I tapped.
for the body code, does it work the way it does for the emotion codes, that there's questions that you answer, and then those yes or no questions kind of just
It works on
in?
Yes. So it works on the beautiful system of, the yes, no. Your body can't lie to itself.
Right.
And you can do that with a simple sway test. If you stand up straight with your hands to your side and, and say to yourself, is my name, and you say, like, if I said to myself, is my name Bob? Well, we know my name's not Bob. And so what you feel is yourself going backwards, and you go, oh, okay. And it's the same if you say a true statement, you go forward. And muscle testing is you can do many, many different forms, but I do it with my fingers. So this is a yes for me when it's kept solid, and this is a no. So when I ask questions, if it's a no, there's no,
Resistance.
it's completely weak and it won't, yeah. And when I have a yes, comes out firm and solid. And you can also use it, using pendulums or necklaces, whatever you feel guides you. So I use my necklace a lot, which is my daughter and myself together here. And I used that a lot initially until I got this whole muscle testing sorted. And then, yes, you just get again, the app is divided into such a way that there's 6 components on the first level, the first layer. And so you go, is it on the right or is it on the left? If it's on the right, you go, okay, is it one of the 3 things? And you just go through them. And so if it is, then you tap into that. And then that takes you to the next level. And you just keep drilling down, drilling down, drilling down until you get to all sorts of different things like your aura or your belief system. There's also things called like idea allergies. Like you can have an idea allergy to something. So it's where, you've just come up with this false way of looking at this piece of information. And so every time you hear that piece of information, you reinforce a negative wrapped around it. And so, yeah, it's a fascinating stuff. It's like, so probably I don't want to get into it too much more because, you really need to see it working to see how it works. But the power of it is that you can release all this energy you find from your body. And what that does is it transforms your life forever. It transforms the way you look. It transforms the way you interact with people. It transforms how you think about yourself. It transforms every single part of your life.
And as far as like the way you were describing the emotion code where you sweep the meridians, do you do the same sweeping technique with the body code, or is it a different technique?
Well, yes, you can do that. But once you get really used to it, you can learn some sort of tricks along the way. So you can, so actually I have a finger that's, my nominator governing meridian. So I can actually do things really subtly in front of people, and they're not even aware I'm clearing energy. Honestly, if I'm working with somebody, I always let them know that I'm working on them. Honestly, it has to be a two-way street. I never, ever work on anybody without their permission. But yeah, you can do it really quickly, really simply, really easily that way. Yeah.
How is this different from like other types of energy healing, like Reiki or pranic healing?
I think they all tie in together. And I think, energy is energy. And I think it's what you're guided to, what you're drawn to, that works best with, what you know and how you think and how you view. And so, yes, Reiki is very, very similar, except the beautiful thing about the emotion code and the body code is that you can do it remotely. So I work on people on the other side of the world, like yourself,
Wow.
yeah, because once you have the permission to tap into that person's energy, then you just use yourself as a proxy and then go through. Instead of using them to work out the resistance, you just, get permission to use them as proxy, and you do it all with it yourself. So yeah, I've worked on a lot of people overseas. In fact, I work on more people remotely than I ever do face to face. Yeah. So,
Helen,
and you can use it for any part of your life too. So yeah, it doesn't necessarily just need to be around your house.
does this ever affect your energy when you're releasing other people's trapped energy?
Yeah, I had a very horrible experience very early on when I first started working on people. And I thought I had shielded myself, protected my own energy, but I hadn't. And I woke up in the morning and I knew as soon as I woke up that I'd absorbed this other person's energy that I was working on. I felt really dreadful. I felt sick. I felt my head was about to explode. My body just felt so out of kilter. And I knew it was about, absorbing someone else's energy. And it was good that I had that insight, because it allowed me to then just go and clear it all out and just rehydrate myself really, really well. And then I learned how to protect my energy even super well from that point going forward. And I think that's important to learn to do, whether you're into energy healing or not. In everyday life, we absorb a lot from people around us. We've all got those negative Nellies around us who suddenly we're in their company. We're excited when we, meet up with a group of people, and then there's one person who will just take the energy of the whole group down.
Yeah.
And you feel yourself going down with it.
Yeah.
And yeah,
Right.
so I don't feel that. And I use it in my workplace, to make sure that, I'm owning my energy. I'm owning what I want to have happen in my day, how I want to feel in my day. And I literally use this in my everyday life all the time. Yeah.
So what are you doing differently now to protect your energy that you didn't do prior to that experience that you had with that client that you worked with, that basically where you absorbed their energy?
Yeah, I think what I did differently was I really went into a deeper spiritual awareness around it. And I really visualized, like I was doing it probably quickly beforehand and not with as much intention. And so as the more I got to understand about energy, is that, it's all governed by intentions. And So the more you place a positive intention to have your whole aura protected and your energy protected, and I actually put it quite wide around me, and I use a beautiful white divine crystalline light that just envelops me. But then I also allow other people's energies to go back to them so that they can be responsible for them, because a lot of people project onto others.
Right.
And so, you know, that's helping them deal with those issues themselves as well by sending it back to them. But I think the biggest thing is I always have a huge vibration of love wrapped into all of this protection. And love is such a high vibration that it protects you really, really well.
And so when you use love as the highest vibration to protect yourself well, you do this in a meditation, like every morning? Is that how you do this?
I used to do that every morning when I woke up. I would, just go through this ritual of, guiding myself through this protective ritual. And, I would visualize myself and I would see myself, this light coming down, divine light coming down and flowing right throughout my whole body, but then also flowing around the outside of me, and that, place the intention of what my thoughts would be, that I would only experience the emotions of, love and above, and that, other people's emotions would bounce back to them so that they would be responsible for their own emotions. So I did all that, and I used to do that daily, and I think it just becomes intrinsic after a while, that I just find myself always protected, and every now and again I do top ups, but I certainly don't do it every day now, because I just feel like it just happens for me now. I've done it so often. So yes,
So when you
maybe I
say
should be
that,
doing it every day, but I'm not.
so when you say that it's intrinsic now, the word that I'm thinking is the word that we briefly talked about before we started recording, trust. I'm assuming that now you have so much trust in this divine light that it has become intrinsic, that it's so easily accessible for you and you trust it 100%.
Let me give you an amazing example of
Sure.
this.
Okay.
So I went for a walk the other day, and it was in a big park that has lots of overgrown grass on it, long grass. And, the tracks, you can go on defined tracks, but you can also go off tracks and walk up amongst the beautiful trees. It's a tree trust, so it's got all these different groves that have been planted. And so I was really off track, and I'd sort of walked for nearly an hour. I got back to my car, and I didn't have my car key. So somewhere along this walk, I had dropped my car key. And I didn't have a spare one, and it was a weekend, and I went, oh, that's perhaps not such a good situation to be in. So I thought, that's okay. I'm just going to trust
Yes.
that I will find it. And I just asked for some guidance from above. And I've got my beautiful angel girl who looks over her mama all the time. And I just said, okay, I'm just going to go back. And I stayed really, really calm. So I wasn't upset. I wasn't angry. I wasn't anything. I just thought, okay, I'm just going to have to backtrack. And so that's what I did. So a third of the way back, I got to where I had slipped at one point, and I thought, maybe I've dropped it here. But I had a good look, and nope. So I went a bit further, and I was just getting into this really long grass. And I went, oh my goodness. And then I took 2 steps, and there was my key, just sitting there in the long grass. So I went, great.
Yeah.
So I picked it up and then walked back to the car again. But, in my past life, before I was introduced to all of these experiences, I would have been in high panic mode. I would have been angry. I would have been cross. I would have been, I don't know what I'm going to do now. I don't know how I'm going to find this. I would have been all sorts of other emotions and feelings. But no, I just trusted that I would find it, and I did.
That's
So,
incredible.
yeah.
And so, I mean, I often hear the word trust when I'm in my meditations. Trust and believe, and that's really something that I'm constantly working on. And yes, the more I trust and the more I believe, the more things come into alignment really naturally and the way they're supposed to in divine order. It's really beautiful.
I think we can, do too much, and I think sometimes we're our own worst enemies. We think we're trying to improve our life or do the right things in that, when in fact we could be impeding them big time. And sometimes if we just step back and allow life to unfold as it's meant to unfold, then it does it in the right order, because sometimes things need to happen first. But we don't. Well, I don't know about you, but sometimes I get a little bit impatient and I think, no, I want that now.
Yeah.
When in fact, I need to actually just wait a little bit for it and wait for a few things to align first. And that is what I find incredible about my life now, is this beautiful trust and belief system, and it just guides me so well. And I feel like my life is on track to being and heading in the direction that it needs to head.
Helen, thanks for sharing that. So now you are a healer. How do you find yourself into alignment with your own divine order now that you're a healer? I'm assuming and I'm feeling that now, since you know that ways to heal yourself, and now that you're healing others, and now that you have this trust, that things just seem a little more pleasant in your life, and they seem to line up a little more naturally than they would have before. Let's just say before you became like energetically inclined to know how things work. Perhaps maybe there was more resistance in the past, and now you've let go of resistance. Do you see things a little more pleasant in life and more beautiful all around you?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. That's why I started my podcast, The Beautiful Side of Grief, because, I wanted to share with people that the most heartbreaking things can happen, but you can still find a beautiful thing at the other side of that. Sometimes you have to allow yourself to go through a heap of emotions to get to that point, and it's not linear, and everybody's timeline is different. But if you allow yourself to do that, you can. I think the biggest thing is that my whole perspective has changed and my whole belief system has changed. So I certainly find myself incredibly spiritual and trusting that there are, these divine beings across the veil, because my daughter connects with me all of the time. I hear her voice, when I do something dumb or something like that. She'll be, chucking out a comment or two, which would be just her. And, and I hear Adrian, who passed later, and I have these all sorts of signs that they are around me. And so that just allows me just to relax in my life. And I think by allowing myself to do that, now I wouldn't call myself a healer. I practice a healing modality.
Okay.
Healers are such powerful people, and I'm not sure I'm worthy of that accolade.
Why
But
not?
I find that my purpose is to serve others in the best way I can possibly do that.
Mm-hmm.
And, and I look at all the greatness around me, and I'm often humbled by that. So if I can shine my light and help in the way I can, I'm honored to do that. And I do it using this healing modality. I do it by healing myself so that I can be the best instrument I can be to help others, because once you've come through your own trauma, you can recognize that so well in others and help them see things that perhaps they are not able to see at that time, but you have the benefit of hindsight.
Helen, but
And
helping
yes.
others is in a way healing others.
No, there isn't. It all comes from within. And this is what I tell others. What
Okay.
I do is guide them to the awareness.
Oh, I see. I see. So you guide
Yes.
people to the awareness. So even though that you're using body code and emotion code, that's not considered a healing modality. It's considered an awareness modality.
Oh, it is considered a healing modality, and people will say that they are healers. I mean, I just
I
think
see.
healing is such a powerful, powerful word that, I'm just reluctant to use that. But I help people who are ready. And this is a key thing. So I can work on somebody and I can release all this energy that's been blocking them and causing them pain, whether that's emotional pain or physical pain. I can do all that. But if that person is not at that level of awareness to know that they need to make some changes in their life
Mm-hmm.
to keep those changes up, then they quickly revert back to trapping that energy again, because it's such a strong energy that's been in their body, and your body knows it so well. So as soon as it comes along again, if you haven't made the changes in how you think and how you behave and how you perceive, then you can quickly trap them back again, and you can go back to square one. And so you can think, oh, I tried that and that didn't work. And so when I don't go looking for people to work with, I don't advertise my services. People find me, they find me.
Mm-hmm.
And I do that because I am a great believer that when people are ready to make changes, then those changes can, be really effective, and I can help guide them through making those changes. But at the end of the day, healing comes from within. So what I'm teaching them to do is to be able to use what I do themselves
Mm-hmm.
so that they can continue to use that in whatever situation they come across. So I hand it over. It's never my intention to spend a year working with somebody, or, it's only as long as it takes them to feel comfortable learning how to muscle test, learning how to, work out what their emotions are, where they're trapped in their bodies, how they can release them. And once they learn that, then they can fly. They can be the best version of themselves.
Well, I'd love to be the best version of myself. So I'm wondering where I can find some of this information. Is this stuff readily available online? Because honestly, I never heard of emotion code or body code prior to talking to you.
Yes. Yes, definitely. Just go and Google it. You'll come up with Dr. Bradley Nelson. I also have some beautiful information on my website, which is https://healing, HEALING,
Mm-hmm.
the number 2, the letter U.com.
Healing to
Healing to
you.
be you, .com. You can go check that out. I've got some wonderful explanations in a very easy to understand way of what these modalities are about, how they can help you. There's links on there that you can go and check it out in more depth that will take you to Discover Healing, which is Dr. Bradley Nelson's website, where he has a load of practitioners there sharing their wisdom, their insights, their wins, if you like, with people. Definitely go and check out that. And and also, if you have grief in your life, go check out my podcast as
Yes, tell
well.
us about your podcast.
Yeah, well, my daughter guided me to this, and I made the mistake of the other week saying to a guest that, we were talking about podcasting, and it can be, really time consuming and take a lot of work. And I have a full-time job as well, so I'm fitting it in. And I happened to mention about being a solo podcaster. And then next thing, this guest, this beautiful lady I'm interviewing, gets this download from my daughter saying, she's not doing this solo. we're doing it together, like that. So she shared that with me after we, finished the interview. And that made me laugh because that is so my beautiful Tao. She's quite bolshy and, she's just gorgeous. And so, so I do this podcast I interview grief from every possible perspective you can imagine, because grief is not only from death. Grief can be from failed relationships, not having the career you thought you were going to have,
Right.
not being the person you wanted to be, thinking all your life you were going to grow up to be. It's in so many different forms. And so I get to share the stories of all these beautiful people who've been through incredible events in their life and who have come out the other side and who are sharing how they did that. And the caveats I wrap around it is that you have to be able to share the positives, because, that's, people get stuck in grief. And if we dwell too much on the heartache and the sadness, and that's not to diminish that is what people are feeling.
Yeah,
But if you keep your focus on, if you keep your focus on it, that's what you're going to get.
So I rarely share this on my podcast. Actually, I'm not even sure I've shared this before. Most of my listeners know that I'm transgender and that I've had multiple over 40 surgeries in 10 years. But what a lot of listeners don't know is that I lost my urinary bladder. And to me, that was a huge loss for me. And I went through a lot of grief. And actually, it physically took 5 years to heal from that. Before I could catheterize without having any pain, before I could catheterize without feeling nauseous, before the infection stopped. It was a full 5 years in hospitals with constant kidney infections and stuff. And I went through a lot, not having a urethra, and the grief of losing a body organ, that especially one that everyone takes their organs for granted, and a lot of times I felt jealousy of people. Wow, you can pee, it must be nice. I used to think these things back in the day. Oh, you can pee, no problem. You can go to public restrooms, must be nice. You can go to Disneyland and not worry about getting an infection. It was just so much grief that I went through losing my urinary bladder, and now I was able to come out of the other side with so much gratitude, and knowing that I lived in a time where I could have my urinary bladder replaced in an incredible institution like UCLA with incredible doctors. I mean, the other side of grief was now showing me that I've got an ability that others don't have, and I'm just so grateful for this incredible body that resilient body that just keeps going. And so the other side of grief for me is the honor that I can withhold within this small framed body of mine. It's just very powerful. So I can definitely see your podcast being really inspirational. Thanks for sharing.
Yeah, and it's what gets me through every day going forward, is to know that I have the choice of how I look at everything that happens in my life, whether it's words, whether it's situations, whether it's people. I get to choose how I want to look at that. And when you change your perspective, you change your outcomes. So
exactly.
And again, you are a prime example of somebody who has been on this unbelievable journey, because when we were talking at the beginning, oh my gosh, you would know the medical system inside out, back to front and sideways. You've been involved in so many aspects of it, and going through what you've been through. And I think, you probably see around you people that are just so bitter and angry and, why me type of thing.
Right.
But there is a reason it is happening to you.
Exactly.
And if you can actually acknowledge that and accept that, you don't have to like it.
Right.
But if you can acknowledge that and accept that, then what that then does is open it up to all the learnings and the things that you can be grateful for. And oh my gosh, that would be probably the biggest shift in my life. was not feeling sorry for myself anymore, taking responsibility for what had happened in my life. Yeah, I didn't have the most perfect childhood, but I tell you what, it set me up well. I learned so much from my experiences. And who would have thought where I am now, those experiences help me understand others and empathize with others and be compassionate towards others. And they intuitively know that I understand what they're talking about because I've experienced it myself. And so isn't that a great way to be able to look at the crappy things that happen in your life?
Helen, if you could go back to one of your darkest days, knowing everything that you know right now, and as joyful and loving and the zest that you have for life right now, if you can go back to your darkest day, what would you tell yourself?
Oh my gosh. So one of my darkest days was actually when I literally was teetering on the edges of taking my own life. And if I knew then what I know now, I would have been able to look at the situation that spiraled me into, getting myself into that other situation where I wanted to take my life, to know that I could just step back and take a look at my life, or take a look at that situation, take a look at that event and say, why is this happening? What is this? What is it that I need to learn from this? Because then you get the answers. When you become so reactive, you can't see anything, you can't hear anything, you're just in a purely reactive state. And so that would be the biggest thing, is like to know that I could take the time to step back, that I didn't have to have all the answers, that I didn't have to have all the solutions, that I didn't have to be perfect. All I needed to be, and all I need to be, is who I am.
I love that. And I have to write this. I have to write this down. All I need to be is who I am.
Yeah, because I remember after Tal died, and you would think that would be my darkest moment, but she just shed so much light on that. That was unbelievable. But you would think that I wouldn't have been able to come back from that. And I surprised myself and everybody by being able to do that. And I forgot where I was going with it. Sorry, Lino.
It's okay,
What was
not at
I?
all. You do great.
Yeah. Just say to me, yeah. Oh, yes, I remember. So I remember a few weeks after Tal died, and I was on my own at home. And I had this immense sense of freedom because I said, the worst has happened to me now. Bring it on. Nothing worse can happen to me.
Right.
So I said, I don't care what people think about me anymore. I don't care what people do to me anymore. I don't care anymore. And I don't mean that in a negative way, but I mean it in a way that I surrendered and I allowed myself to be who I am and totally own that and have that freedom. I was so caught up in trying to live a life that I thought others expected of me, that I forgot to be myself. I forgot to live the life that's authentic to me. And Tao dying gave me that freedom.
And that is a perfect example of what's on the other side of grief.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Helen, for this incredible information that you've given all of the listeners and everybody in the world. Helen Morris, everybody, HTTP colon 2 double backslashes, however you say it, healing number 2u.com, and her incredible podcast called The Other Side of Grief Podcast. Thanks so much for being on a little less. No? Oh no, what's it called?
the beautiful side of grief.
Oh my goodness. I cannot forget that word. The beautiful side of grief. Oh my goodness. Thanks so much for being in beautiful energy on my podcast. It's been an honor to connect with you, Helen. I wish you and all of your loved ones incredible, beautiful, loving, light energy, and you and your divine wisdom. Thank you so much for being on my show.
Lena, an absolute pleasure to be with you, to hear your story, to be on this journey with you. Oh, gosh, I've just loved this hour. Thank you.
Absolutely. It's been beautiful. Thank you, Helen. Thank you, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in to A Little Less Fear podcast. You know, I keep going because of all of you, all of the viewers, the supporters, the listeners, the followers, the subscribers, the feedback, the comments that I get. I'm just really grateful to be where I'm at and to be able to bring all these people here on this platform to motivate the world. It motivates me to keep going. It motivates me. It lights me up to keep going and going and going. And because of that, my website's also going strong. I've created an incredible resource page for all kinds of people, anybody needing support of any kind. Please check out my website at www.alittlelessfear.com. And I've also launched freelance poetry for businesses, for marketing, for people needing people that need something creative. Check it out. Check it out. It's fun. There's video poetry. It's visual poetry. And if you have any other questions for me, you can also email me at littlelessfear@gmail.com. Thank you so much, everybody. I love you all, and just a million thanks.